At this time, we'd like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting of the City Council of Palo Alto for Tuesday, September 16th, 2025. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Rectal,
Here.
Councilmember Lithcott-Hayes,
Here.
and Chair Bird.
Here.
Present.
Okay, we have 3 items tonight, but before going into the action items, we have an opportunity for members of the public to speak on any item that's not on the agenda, but is within the purview of this committee. Do we have any members of the public to speak on that?
No public comment.
All righty, thanks. So we'll go right into our first item, which is acceptance of the California Public Employees Retirement System, or CalPERS, pension annual valuation reports as of June 30th, 2024.
Thank you, Chair Burt. Paul Harper with the Office of Management and Budget. We'll get the presentation up here momentarily. Thank you. And if we can go to the next slide, please. So first of all, I just wanted to say that this report is a transmittal of the current status of the city's retirement accounts with CalPERS for both the safety and miscellaneous employees. And at a high level, the status is favorable and consistent with prior year's policy and planning. I also wanted to note that our CalPERS actuarial, Matthew Biggert, is online for more technical questions. So thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight we'll be looking at the sources of pension funding, how they're going in terms of trends and strategies, the status of the plans, including current and projected employer contributions and expected changes due to future reporting, next steps in the budget process, and then the goal at the end of the evening is to accept the valuation reports as of June 30th, 2024, to use for planning the long-range financial forecast and the 2027 budget. Thank you. So in this slide, you will see what is known as the pension buck. This is the sources of how each dollar collected by CalPERS is distributed. So starting on the left, about 55% of the dollar is collected from investment earnings. 34 cents is from CalPERS employers contributions, and then 11 cents is from the actual members or employees contributions. This is as of the most recent actuarial study as of June 30th, 2024. And the breakdown specific to Palo Alto and some of the other terms used when talking about pension funding, we'll talk about further on the next slide. So on this slide, you can see that it's broken down similarly with the 55% on the left, 34% CalPERS employer contributions in the middle, and the 11% employee contributions on the right. So starting on the left with the CalPERS investment earnings, most of the resources are from investment earnings. Therefore, when investment earnings are bad, it negatively affects the pension plans. When they're good, it impacts them as well. But just to note, this is the biggest piece of the contributions. The CalPERS uses a 6.8% target. The most recent report shows that a 9.3% or a favorable earnings compared to what the target is for the period ending in June 30th, 2024. The period ending in June 2025, the estimate is about 11.6%, but these numbers have not been calculated or put into the projections. They will be put into the projections for when we bring this report forward a year from now. Historically, investment returns have ranged from negative 23.6% to positive 21.3% in any given year. The 20-year average is about 6.9% or very close to the target. The middle block, this is the payment made by the city to CalPERS. It includes 2 components, the normal cost or the pay-go cost is paid each pay period to fund the future cost of current employees and is billed as a percentage of payroll. The other piece is the UAL, or the unfunded accrued liability. This is billed as a flat dollar amount over a 20 to 30-year amortization period, and this liability changes when actual results differ from assumptions. So this is the biggest piece that gets impacted when the investment returns do not come in as expected. These amounts are outlined in the valuation transmitted tonight and will be used to inform the upcoming long-range financial forecast and 2027 budget process. Third, the employee contributions. The employees pay a percentage of their paycheck based on the pension plan that they're in. We have 3 pension plans, Tier 1, Tier 2, and PEPRA. PEPRA is the Public Employees Pension Reform Act. And as of September 2025, approximately 62% of the city's employees are in PEPRA. This is compared to about 60% from last year. Also, employees do pick up a portion of the employer's normal cost based on the labor group that they're in. It's 1 to 2% in miscellaneous groups and 3 to 4% in the safety plan. The other item that's shown on here that wasn't shown on the CalPERS buck is the pension trust. This is also known as the 115 trust. This is the funding that the city contributes to when we are funding proactively at a lower contribution rate. So this is the 5.3% that the city assumes versus the 6.8% that CalPERS assumes in terms of returns. So the difference between those two is what we send to this trust every year in order to refund pension costs. These dollars are not contemplated in terms of the reports that CalPERS gives us. And so this is on top of what has been shown in the reports. And for context, if we added the almost 110 million that's in this trust at this point in time, that would increase our funded status by about 6.6% up to 72.6%.
Paul, I just want to interrupt you because you just said something and I just want to be sure I understand. So when we have our own percentage of 5.3, it is 5.3% of what? That or the difference between 5.3 and 6.8 is what we're putting to the trust, but it's the percentages off of what?
Payroll, I believe. No, sorry.
So it's commonly called the discount rate, but really that's the assumed investment rate of return. So CalPERS positively assumes a 6.8% investment return, while we feel that might be too optimistic. And so we fund at a 5.3%.
But I'm saying
it's
what? The investment return on what?
Our assets. So our portfolio of assets being held at CalPERS.
At CalPERS.
Yes.
Okay. Our stuff that's at CalPERS, they think it's going to make 6.8. We know it's going to make closer to 5.3. And
We don't know that.
I know when I say no,
assume
I mean,
that.
I know, sorry. No
We
is too
assume
strong
that.
a term. Okay.
Yeah.
got it.
So the
Thank you.
money's held there on our behalf.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Just to note, one of the methods to potentially increase our funded status would be to make additional discretionary payments, or ADPs, from this trust. We have a retiree benefit policy that outlines the use of these funds. The policy is projected to return to Finance Committee in line with the ALM study, or the asset liability management study that CalPERS does every 4 years. They're currently in the process of doing that, and it's anticipated to come out in November of 2025. So use of this fund and how the policy defines that's the timing of when we would come back to discuss that with Finance Committee and Council. Next slide. So getting into more of what this specific report talks about, the 2024 valuation report, there are no real significant changes from the actuarial assumptions from last year. The ADC, or actuarial determined contribution, or the amount that the city is supposed to pay towards pension costs, is about 71 million this year. That's about 2.6 million or 3.8% higher than what it was for fiscal year 2026. And that includes an $18.7 million normal cost or pay-go cost and a $52.3 million UAL or unfunded accrued liability cost. The total balance of the UAL at this point is 566.4 million, which we'll look at in a little bit to see how that compares to last year. The table on this slide shows the investment returns over the past 5 years and what years they were used to develop the budget. So for example, the one on the far left, the June 2020 report was used to develop the fiscal year 2023 budget. The returns that year were 4.7. The target that CalPERS had at that point in time was 7%, and so it was lower by 2.3 than their investment returns. Our funded status is on the bottom row, and this is a combined rate between both the safety and the miscellaneous plans. So in that year, we were at 63.5%. If you move all the way over to the right, the current report, the investment returns were 9.3 versus the 6.8%. So that's a 2.5% higher return than expected. But due to sort of the volatility of the returns over the prior few years, you can see that our funded status has only really increased by about 2.5% from where it was about 5 years ago. Just to note, the returns are phased in over a 5-year period, and so that can also impact sort of how the funded status is calculated. And so the big negative return in 2022, the middle column, that is still being phased in. And so we'll see in a couple slides how that impacts our UAL or contributions that we need to pay. Next slide. So this shows the UAL over that same time period from 2023 through 2027. As you can see, sort of the middle of the chart, it says funded status in italics. That's the same funded status that was on the previous slide. In 2023, it was at 63.5, and in 27, it's at 66%. If we were to add in the trust dollars that we have outside, you can see that it would go up correspondingly. In 2023, we would have been about at the same place, 66.1%. And in 27, we would be at about 72.6%. Sorry, just checking my notes. Yeah, next slide, please. This slide shows the employer contributions, normal cost, and UAL for both the plans. So this is a combined rate compared to payroll. Safety is in the blue bar, miscellaneous is in the gray bar. This essentially shows as a percentage of payroll how much the city is estimated to contribute. Where you can see that sort of 5-year phase in of the very big negative return is sort of when you look between 29 and 30, you can see that we're continuing to grow up through 29, and then in 30 through 32, we start to taper off and actually start those percentages of payroll start to decrease because that large negative loss has now been fully integrated into the amount that the city is needing to pay. Next slide.
And they're just doing this to average things out, or why does it roll in like that, phase in?
I don't know if Matt can speak to that, but my understanding is yes, to sort of smooth it out so that big impacts don't fluctuate the contributions needed on a very specific basis.
That's essentially it. I mean, the investment return is the most volatile element of the whole valuation process, and we don't want to have sudden impacts as a result of either very large negative or positive returns.
Sorry. This slide is showing a comparison of actuarial reports from last year to this year for annual changes for the normal cost, the UAL, and the total ADC. This table shows a comparison between the same time period, or sorry, for the next 5 years, 27 through 31. Fiscal impacts vary based on several factors. In general, the normal cost is increasing due to the overall payroll for the city. That's increasing due to more positions in the city, as well as lower vacancy rates. The UAL is increasing as a result of CalPERS practice to implement those 5-year ramp-up periods. The lower returns from a couple years ago are still being incorporated as previously talked about. And again, the costing model, you can see the UAL is increasing at a lower rate when you get to 29, levels off, and then sort of starts going lower in 2031. Staff will use this information as a basis for the long-range financial forecast, but further analysis will be done over the next few months to determine the fiscal changes needed to fund pension costs over the forecast period. Next slide. So just to highlight some of the changes that are coming up, as noted before, the CalPERS preliminary investment returns for the period ending in fiscal year 2025 or June 30th, 2025 is 11.6%. These have not been incorporated into the numbers being presented tonight. Again, there was a higher return of 9.3% that's been incorporated. It's higher than the CalPERS rate. It's higher than what the city assumes, 5.3. So that helps to decrease the amount that we need to pay over time. And just to note, the CalPERS ALM study, again, is to be completed in November 2025 to inform ongoing discount rates and other actuarial assumptions over the next 4 years. Also, a couple of things that will be factored in, the increase in staffing. In 2026, we added 18 positions to the budget. So we're now at 1,110 positions, or a 1.7% change from the previous year. Also, the new labor agreements for all the bargaining groups have been approved through June 2028. Just to note, SEIU is through December 2027, but those increases in those plans will also be incorporated into the budget as we move forward. Next slide. Finally, next steps and actions. In December and January, the long-range financial forecast, which reviews the 10-year financial outlook, will be brought forward to the Finance Committee. This will include pension trust contributions at the 5.3 discount rate per the retiree benefit policy, and the estimates for the expected changes, such as the 11.6% preliminary investment, will also be incorporated. In May, the proposed budget deliberations happen with the Finance Committee to discuss the proposed budget and how these costs impact that. The budget is adopted in June, and then the ALM study will be completed in November 2025. Currently, we're planning to return with the discussions on that in fall of 2026, but we may need to bring that forward earlier depending on sort of what the ALM study informs us. And finally, the action tonight is to accept these reports and to use them for the long-range financial forecast and the fiscal year 2027 budget development. Staff is here for questions.
Thank you. Let's first see if we have any members of the public who wish to speak.
No public comment.
Okay. Would like to go first.
I'll kick it off. Feel free to jump in if I say something that you want to comment on. On packet page 7, they talk about the inflation adjustment, and it was reduced from 2.5% expected inflation to 2.3, which is kind of bad timing considering this is a 2021. That's when inflation really kicked in. Was that process started before inflation kicked in? Inflation kicked in like at the beginning of 2021, and this was November of 2021. So does CalPERS have insight into that?
Yeah. that was that was part of the experience study that was completed in advance of the inflation that we had after that. Now, the initial proposal for the experience study that we are making in September uh, has inflation assumption going back to 2.5%.
Okay. I mean, even today, 2.5 is a little optimistic, right? The Fed's target is 2, but no one's really expecting them to hit 2. So is 2.5 conservative enough?
Yeah, I mean, there's a great deal of uncertainty with that. I mean, there's a pretty wide range of long-term inflation assumptions and a significant amount of debate in the actual community about what the best long-term rate will be. That's what we settled on for right now. It was, I think it was between like 2.5 and 2.75. And the thinking at this point was that the current high inflation would be short-lived. But with all this, there's a huge amount of uncertainty.
Yeah, exactly. With tariffs and stuff like that, it makes it much harder for the Fed to work. Okay.
Councilmember Rectal, the other thing just to think about as we're looking at these assumptions is CalPERS takes a long-term view on this. And so as much as we are seeing the spikes or the changes in inflation on a daily, weekly, even annual basis, CalPERS is really looking at this on a 20-year investment and kind of 20-year experience aspect. And so that's some aspect of why you might see, our mortgage rates right now are way higher than this.
Yeah. But if you gave me the 2.3 target, I'd bet you dinner that over the next 20 years, we're going to have more than 2.3% inflation. But anyway, okay, we can move on. Can you bring up packet page 51? That shows, so I'm a little ignorant exactly how CalPERS works and how there's a lot of risk in investments. You have longevity risk for the people who are having it. You have investment risk. So here we have the valuation data that has the various members. So we have active members, transferred members, separated, and then retired. So let's say one of our retirees is really healthy and lives a long time. Who takes that risk? Is that CalPERS that takes that longevity risk, or is that the city?
The city takes on that risk.
Okay. Okay. And how does separated members work? If someone leaves their job and now then they retire from Mountain View, do we split that risk of that person?
Can you clarify the question? What do you mean, you split the risk?
Okay, so we keep on paying this retiree until they die, right? That's coming out of the city's allocation.
Right.
And if they've worked their whole life in Palo Alto, we pay 100% of that. But if they've split their time between Mountain View and Palo Alto, there's some prorated percentage that Palo
Yeah,
Alto pays?
Yeah, you're only paying for the cost of service associated with their service with your agency.
Okay. And so does CalPERS absorb any risk, or they basically just CalPERS is just investing for us and then we're taking all the risk?
Uh, with your type of agency, yeah, all the risk is on your own assets.
Okay. Thank you.
May I add something?
Sure.
Matt, I also believe there's a demographic analysis that's done every 2 years, I believe, or 4 years in addition to the ALM. And that helps the board and the actuaries update different assumptions, right?
Yeah, so that's done simultaneously with the ALM study that's occurring. And we make the proposals for the demographic assumptions and the ALM studies every 4 years. The general conclusion of the current experience study is that we're not recommending significant changes to our demographic assumptions. Mortality, we're not changing significantly. There was some anomalous data associated with COVID, but that's being excluded. And then there were some other assumptions that showed some pretty anomalous deviations from past experience, and we're not anticipating them going forward. there are two increases really to plan costs as a result of the demographic assumptions, demographic and economic assumptions. One is the change in the salary scale. So we're anticipating generally higher salary growth rates going forward, and then the inflation increase from 2.3 to 2.5% will also drive costs.
So just for the committee, the board does go through these various analysis, not only on the investment strategies and liability position, but then also the demographics, the information on this page on a periodic cycle to make sure that it's trending consistently with our best understanding over a 20, 30-year horizon.
Okay, and so we actually use that demographics when we're doing the expected outlay of funds.
They do as a
Liabilities.
part, CalPERS does as a part of this body of work.
Okay. So what do small cities do? I mean, we have a fair number of employees, so things kind of should average out. But if you have a small city and they happen to have a bunch of healthy people, that could be a real impact to the city's coffers. So is there some option for small cities?
There is. So there are two broad classes of plans that we have. There are non-pool plans where you have an agency with its own assets and plan experience only affects them. And then we also have pool plans, as there are a lot of agencies that are smaller in size that basically share demographic risk. So they're not subject to that sort of volatility.
Okay, thank you. Can you bring up page 25, packet page 25? And this lists the allocation, asset allocation. And the one thing that jumped out at me is here is we have a 5% strategic financing. So we're leveraging, and I mean, right now, short rates are pretty high right now. So I'm kind of surprised that we'd be leveraging borrowing to invest in other things. Can you talk about that?
You know, I am not familiar with that enough to comment. I can get some additional information for you, but I can't really comment on that right now.
Okay, so I assume that they looked at and they thought that there was some mispricing they want to take advantage of, but most assets are not real cheap right now, so I'm kind of surprised they're doing that, especially with short rates being rather high. Can you go to the next page? And so, I mean, when I looked at that previous chart, it looks like you have about 60% equity exposure. And when I compare these results to what a passive 60-40 would be, it was significantly lower. The results that CalPERS has is about 1% less than just a passive 60-40 portfolio. Does CalPERS calculate alpha and say what kind of market performance they have?
That number, I believe, is reported somewhere. I don't have it available to me immediately, but I think I can get that for you some later point in time.
Okay, but in general, does CalPERS achieve a positive alpha?
No, I do not know that.
Okay. Okay, and yeah, so one question that this brought up, looking at especially at that previous chart, we have the city pension trust. What is our asset allocation for that?
I believe it's a 50-50.
Okay, and it's passive, or we hire?
It's in PARS, which is being managed as a collective pool portfolio for all participants. There's about 5 different investment strategies. So actually, yeah, it's a managed portfolio, but not specific to ours separately. It's by these different pools.
Okay.
Actually, I think it's 60-40.
60-40, 60% equity?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then when finally at the back, like page 156 and back, there's all these tables, data. Is there anything either that I should be looking at? Is that, or is it just that's there for completeness and then there's no really smoking guns we should be examining?
Referring to the appendix?
Like packet page 156, which would be, let's see, what is that labeled? That is attachment C. I mean, because this is one of the reports that we have to accept. And I mean, when I look at it, it makes sense to me, but
So all I saw was service retirement rates. Is that what that was?
yeah, for duration of service and then, yeah, the service retirement tables they are.
What table are you referring to in the attachment C?
Okay, look at packet page 156.
Okay, let's go to packet page 156.
So Councilmember, all of these appendices are the assumptions that the actuaries are using to create ultimately the report itself. So they show all of their work, and that's what you're seeing in a lot of the appendices, because everything from retirement age to longevity to investment earnings all factor into, the actuarial's
Yep.
work.
And so what I want to know, there's hundreds of tables here, or seems like 100, a lot of tables.
There are many.
So does CalPERS, when they look at these tables, do they have some trending, or did they distill it down into something that's a little more easy to digest? Or is this just for completeness and that's it?
Yeah, it's for completeness. I mean, the vast majority of agencies aren't going to have a use for this. I mean, if you wanted like maybe a distilled description of the assumptions, I would recommend looking at maybe the experience study report, which kind of provides a summary of the changes that we made and a brief overview of the rates. But in general, there's no reason for you to be looking at these numbers. Someone might use these numbers as some sort of reasonability check on the actuarial analysis, but outside of that, it's not going to be useful for you.
I would imagine if you had this from last year, you could do some trending or something like that, but
well, these numbers are only going to be revised every 4 years.
Okay.
So they're going to be revised in the next valuation. But that's how often we review the demographic assumptions.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Julie?
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Paul and Lauren, and Kylie. For members of the public who want to better understand this issue of unfunded pension liability and just the challenges we have as a municipality in providing these kinds of benefits and making sure we have the funds to pay them out over time, I recommend a video tutorial put together by our former mayor, Eric Filseth. Just go onto YouTube, search Pension Finance Palo Alto. It was done in December 2022. It's about 40 minutes, and I think it's really well worth it. Okay, so speaking of the 115 pension trust, designed to get us to fund the true normal cost. Did I get that right? My questions. How did we establish our more conservative discount rate of 5.3 versus CalPERS 6.8? I said sort of cavalierly, we know that's a better rate. And Pat said, we don't know. And I appreciate the truth of that. We are projecting we think that's the better estimate. But how did we come to 5.3 and how often do we revisit that?
So I can answer the second part of that question in terms of when we revisit that. That's part of the retiree benefit policy that is scheduled to be revisited when the ALM study comes out. So previously it was done every 3 years. The last time we revised the policy, it was adjusted to align with the ALM study because that's when we get more information from CalPERS. So when the ALM study comes out in November of 2025, we will start to do our work with our other actuary, Foster & Foster, to analyze that and come back to make recommendations on updating the city's retiree benefit policy. In terms of why the 5.3% was picked, I don't
It's fine.
recall.
I understand that it's revisited fairly frequently, and I don't need to know what the origin of that was.
It's
Unless
actually-
you're dying to provide it.
I mean, it all ties. The origin of it is part of that ALM study. CalPERS actually has consultants, frankly, that are looking at experience, looking at high, low, and what their projections are in the marketplace. And so we use that every 4 years to help inform what we think the projection.
But that's not how we got 5.3. CalPERS has their own projections. Didn't we establish the 5.3?
We did, but how we came to the 5.3 number was informed by CalPERS's independent analysis. So similar to us, CalPERS moves through this process of, what do we actually think the rate of return will be on our investments? And then they, as a board, have to make a decision as to what it would be.
But what did they believe it would be? They didn't believe it would be 5.3, did they?
So I'm not explaining this well. So we're looking at investment, and depending on how risky or conservative you want to be in terms of what you think your investments will earn over a 20-year period of time, different experts will come up with different numbers. And as part of that ALM process, CalPERS has had their own independent consultants provide estimates of what those returns could be. And then they, as a board, make a choice, to your point, as to which assumption they want to use in the actuaries. We use that independent study that they use and that range to help inform what we actually think
But what
the
did
rate will
that
be.
independent study actually say? It didn't
The
say
5.3.
it recommended 5.3?
I don't remember if it was exactly 5.3, but it was in that ballpark. Yes.
Okay, and if just to inform us, Keith, you had asked for a page, and I can't find it. That had the blue graph going back 20 years or so on
Oh, yeah, that was
returns.
the returns would be on back page 26.
Okay, just following up on, go a little deeper on this. And what year did we establish the 5.3?
So we established the 5.3 last time we did this, which was 4 years ago. So
I think the policy was actually approved in February of 2023, if I remember correctly, because we had some major assumptions that we were changing. And so it took us a few iterations to get it. So I think February 2023 is when the policy was actually approved by council.
So when we look at this volatility over 20 years, we've had just wild swings, and we will going forward. We haven't had a significant recession for some time, and we're going to get that sooner or later. But it's I just want to say it's interesting that over the last 6 years, we've averaged 7.76% return, or the CalPERS did. It's actually over the last 9 years, counting the FY25 that's not built in yet. It's even higher than that, I think, just as a reference point. So this is a decade, basically. Well, if you go back then one more year, then it brings it down. And 2 more years, it brings down more. So who knows what window to pick to really inform us. But going back to the FY20 that was in the report, and including the FY25 that's not yet calculated, that comes out actually to trying to remember. No, if you go for the FY21 that was in the report, that would be 8.38% over 5 years. That doesn't mean that's going to be what we have going forward, but I just wanted to put that context that we're doing better than we projected.
Yeah.
All right.
And we're in this hole because of overly rosy projections by CalPERS over the years. And it makes me wonder, since we have a CalPERS person on the line, here we are in Palo Alto, our leaders of the past created the Section 115. I imagine there are a number of municipalities that need to do that, but haven't. I just wonder what when CalPERS looks at what our projection is of 5.3 and they remain at 6.8, isn't there a sense that they're not being conservative enough and not, sort of facilitating the process of filling up this unfunded pension liability hole. I'd just love to know what their thoughts are on that. It's all up to you, Matt.
I
Yeah,
was gonna say, I think, Matt, you are from the actuary office, right?
I am. Yes.
So feel free to answer as you see appropriate, but also it's okay to pass.
Well, I'll admit the investment side of things is not my expertise. I will say the current proposal that we have as a result of the ALM study is that 6.8% is a reasonable long-term investment assumption going forward. Again, going back to inflation, a lot of these assumptions, there's a significant amount of uncertainty, and there is a fairly wide range of reasonable assumptions. But according to our capital market assumptions and projections of market conditions, 6.8% is likely to be the discount rate going forward that we're going to use.
Thank you. I see that our target is to be at 90% in 2036. We're on target for that. Is that correct?
So based on again, the last time we did the study with our actuarial, the miscellaneous plan would get there at around 2034. The safety plan would get there in 2036, 2037. Again, this was done almost 4 years ago now, and so we haven't included the last 4 years of returns. And so once we do this again, we'll see where we are in terms of the 90%. But as of this point, we look to still be on track to be there.
And why is 90% our goal?
So I can, ultimately, all of these are policy goals, and we're trying to, have a crystal ball into the future of, what are all the assets going to do? What is life expectancy? What are medical costs going to do? And so ultimately, the council, as we were developing this policy, there wasn't magic to the 90%. I can give you the reasoning that they used ultimately to land on it, which is no assumptions will be perfect. So whether you're at 100%, 110%, or 90%, you could fluctuate by a change in an age or a medical or any kind of investment earnings on any given year. And so knowing that that fluctuation can happen, and knowing that this council presumed that at that time, I should say the former council presumed that the CalPERS assumptions were not conservative enough for what we wanted to do financially as an organization. Balancing that with how much and how expensive it would be ultimately to get there, they landed at 90. So it's not a perfect algorithm. Ultimately, it's the policy decisions of what level of risk are we willing to take and where can we find comfort in our proactive approach.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Well, just following up on that, isn't there also in selecting a somewhat, well, I won't say arbitrary, but subjective decision on what that goal is? Our retirees are supported by the contributions that continue to go in from current employees. If over time we grow in population and we have to have more employees to serve that population, then our pool of active employees continues to grow. And so isn't that one of the factors as well in considering what would be our appropriate target?
I think that's an actuarial question. Matt, can you speak to this ratio of active employee contributions supporting retiree? How is that relevant and what should policymakers know?
Well, I guess I was understanding the question in the context of like your funded ratio target. Is that what it was?
Correct.
A funded ratio target is, an agency specific issue. Like, it's up to them as to what is a logical choice. I guess I wouldn't necessarily interpret the number of actives as being related to that. I mean, it does have the impact of reducing your UAL contributions as a percentage of payroll, but I guess I wouldn't really connect it to the funded status.
Okay, thanks. One of the things that I'm really interested in is how our projections that were provided compare to our previous projections. And that I didn't see in the report. And that's what, if we not only have the projections on our contributions, but these go into our long-range financial forecasts. And when I see a change, I want to understand they go up or down. And all we're saying is, well, here's our new projections. And every time we do this, I ask for those retrospective projections so we can compare our current ones versus our former and see if things got better or worse.
Clerk's office, can you bring up slide 8, please? So while that's being brought up, so this slide attempts to compare what the difference between what we had in the June 30th, 2023 valuation compared to the June 30th, 24 valuation that we're looking at today. And so just looking at the chart in fiscal year 2027, comparing the actuarial reports to each other, the normal cost has increased 1.6 million. The UAL has increased 1.9 for a total ADC increase of 3.5%. As I mentioned in the presentation, these numbers will be used for sort of our basis in terms of planning for the long range and for the budget, but these actuarial numbers are not exactly what will be used, mainly on the normal cost side, because normal cost is based on the current positions, the current employees, and how much they cost. Lauren, did you want to add to that at all?
Well, sorry if I'm misunderstanding. So I thought this was comparison of, are you saying these were the June 2023 projections? This says June 23 valuations, and the other says forecasted pension costs for June 2024. So I thought we were comparing two different things, not forecasted versus forecasted.
So let me rephrase. The title is conflating two words, which is confusing. These are forecasted pension costs. This is the difference between this valuation report that we're submitting tonight and last year's valuation report. So
Okay.
this is the difference in the
In the
total.
forecasts, it's one forecast to another forecast, not one forecast versus a known.
Correct.
Okay.
And the forecast is based on the actuarial report. So when we use that word forecast, it's pooling the attachment C in essence.
So our costs are this much higher than we had forecasted.
Based on the actuarial reports. Mhm.
Okay.
So we're trying to use the same basis for this analysis, just so you could see apples to apples.
So when we're in a current period of returns higher than CalPERS projection and significantly higher than our own projections, why is it that then the forecasted pension is going up when I would guess that we'd see some revision downward in our payments as a result of those returns being above projections?
We'll ask Matt to
Okay.
respond and I can add more, but I'm sure I don't have to.
Yeah, so there are a few different things going on. The employer normal cost rates are trending down as you get more PEPR members. But you do have the effect of payroll growth, which is driving that normal cost in comparison to the projections. So that's why that went up. Now, as for the higher than expected investment returns, not producing a reduction in the UAL contribution, you have really like two major components of the UAL. There is the investment gain loss, which as the most recent valuation was negative, so it does have the effect of reducing your UAL. But you also had what's called non-investment loss, which was related to higher than expected salary increases. And what happens with those is those aren't phased in like the investment gain loss. So the non-investment gain loss base is not ramped in. And so you're immediately hit with higher contributions as a result of that. Whereas the investment gain loss ramps up over the course of 5 years. And so that's why you see the UAL contribution relative to your projections trending downwards.
Okay, and thank you. And so that payroll growth, we in that period we had a recovery in staffing from COVID cuts, and we had a significant increase in salary increases for payroll to attempt to get us to our 75th percentile goal. So I think I get that. So then on our kind of our current payroll growth, we have on slide 9, we have for FY26, it shows a 1.7% increase in numbers of staffers. That doesn't include what raises we have. But given the budget that we have been working on, and are we projecting that increase in staffers? Is that correct? That we're looking at an 18 FTE equivalent increase this year?
Are we referring to slide 9? Can we put that
Yeah.
up for a moment?
Yeah.
We can track the
Just
question.
second to last bullet. Does that reflect where we are? We are projecting 18 FTE increase.
So these are the numbers in the fiscal year 2026 adopted budget. So this is the current authorized staffing level as of July 1st, 2025. Sorry. So
Okay.
these 18 FTE are already budgeted in the current year.
And
that
then
we're in.
we just had our cost reductions, which had some modest impact on this, but it wouldn't affect it that much. Okay. All right, thank you. And I will note too that that's authorized, and we're trying to focus more on really looking at employed staffers, which is what we would pay these amounts based on, not authorized. So I think we want to make sure that we don't equate those two.
Could I just get offline, my notes from the budget process say we were going up 12.25 FTE or 1.1%. So this is a significant difference from that. I would just love to know, I'm sure neither is an error, but something has happened in the interim to give us an additional 7.75.
And Julie, were those notes from before we had the 6 million?
Yes, this is
So
from,
then I
but
can't
the 6
remember.
million, we certainly did not add people.
No, I thought we reduced it more.
I can answer that. So the 12.25 was the number from the proposed budget. The 18.25 is with those 6 positions that were added in the fire department between the proposed and the adopted.
Perfect. Thank you.
Hold up. Can you bring up packet page, let's see, this is packet page 44, please. And this is a sensitivity study to inflation. And it shows there that the inflation reduces the real return. Does the study also look at the change in expenses due to inflation? For example, higher salaries mean that you'll have to have higher payouts. Or is this just purely looking at it from the return of investments?
This looks at both.
Okay. So the fact that you were talking about earlier, the fact that we saw higher salaries, that would be baked into this.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Beat that horse.
Yeah, Matthew, if I said Michigan or upper New York, upstate New York, would I be right?
You're very good. I'm from Rochester, New York.
I can hear it. I'm from Wisconsin, but it's close.
That doesn't get us a better discount rate, right?
That was my like soft pitch for like a better discount rate.
Okay, so we're being asked to recommend that council accept the pension annual valuation reports as of June 2024, and for the miscellaneous and safety plans.
You need a motion?
So moved.
Okay, second.
All right. All in favor? Aye, that passes unanimously. All right, thank you. Okay, recycle that. So that takes us to a recommendation for to the council that we would consider to adopt a resolution amending utilities connection fees and service charges and utility rate schedules for electric, water, gas, wastewater, and miscellaneous, and to approve a corresponding budget appropriation revisions for FY26. Welcome.
Let me start out. Alan Curatori, Director of Utilities. So we have our full team here to present this, and I wanted to introduce first on my far right, Dave Wan. He's our Strategic Business Manager. He led this effort. The presentation will be done by Anna Vrong. She's our Senior Business Analyst. And we also brought our subject matter experts. So if you have detailed questions on how these fees and connections were updated and generated, I just wanted to thank the team in advance. So Terry Crowley, he's our Acting Chief Operating Officer. He'll be here to talk about any of the electric fees. Anthony Meneses is our Manager of Utility Operations for Water, Gas, Wastewater. And John Wee represents Water, Gas, Wastewater Engineering, and he does primarily our development review. So I'm going to give this over to Anna to walk through the presentations, and we'll have staff come up and answer any detailed questions you may have.
Sorry, thank you. Hello, good evening, Finance Committee members. My name is Anna Vong. I'm very excited here tonight to talk about our utilities connection fees and the service charges in the utilities rate schedule. So at the end of this presentation, we're looking for Finance Committee to move this staff report forward to the council for approval for the 5 rate schedules and the increases proposed within. So this is here as background, some background information and the analysis of what of our rate schedules. The engineering staff typically updates the rate schedules and every about 3 to 5 years. The last update was in 2019. The length of time, so we're past that 5 years now, but this is kind of in part due to COVID, where we held the rates and the fees steady for some time, and then also some internal resource constraints due to the large capital projects and projects. And this analysis covers the full spectrum of the connection fees from when a plan is submitted and then it comes to our department, and then all the way through to the construction and the inspections. Some of these rates that are increasing are due to updated time estimates, updated labor hour rates, material costs, and disposal expenses. And we're also looking to add some charges in the C1. We'll see in the different rate schedules, there's some additions in such as the equipment fees. We're looking to be able to recover costs for use of the equipment and the various like equipment and large vehicles for third-party repairs, third-party damages. There's cross-connection fees, and these are inspection late charges and test fees that we're proposing for backflow devices. Some of the analysis rate for as a whole, the utilities, we do look at where we can have cost savings and operational efficiencies. So part of this, we use drilling and boring instead of an open trench whenever possible. And part of the process, we also discovered being able to standardize a couple more fees so that reduces the engineering time and staffing efficiencies. The rate schedule being proposed here is effective January 1st, 2026. And the next slide, please. So you might be wondering by now, what are the connection fees and what are connection fees and how are they applicable? So these fees are cost recovery for work that's performed by the city staff for customer connections at their request. And this would apply to plans that are submitted through the building for new construction. This could be like a tear down and building a new building, upgrading an existing site, such as maybe building a new floor or adding an ADU or two. And so listed here in this table are the 5 rate schedules. This is for electric, gas, water, sewer, and the C1 miscellaneous charges. And we see that on the table, there's a number of fees per rate schedule and then the annual expected cost recovery associated with these fee increases. And then the percentage increase for the standard connection fees. And then for the C1 rate, we have mainly the hourly rate that's increasing from 2019, $152 to the proposed rate of $207. One slide, please. So this slide here has a table of the electric rate schedule. There are 6 fees here. I don't know if you were able to recall from the previous slide that there were 6 fees. This is 6 standardized fees, right? So that means that when these projects come in for 200 amp services, they fall within this range or the scope of work. And then and then here's the specific charges. You might see also here that there's a 278% increase for the underground 200 amp services. And that's due to the previous mention of the analysis that we had done, updating the time estimates, the labor hours that are included for having to complete the process from the beginning to end. And same with the overhead services, we see that there's a fairly large percentage increase, and that's the same process, analysis that we had as well. But part of this analysis, we did see that the 400 amp services for underground and overhead services, we're seeing a lot of applications come through. So having a standard fee just provides the staffing efficiency. When these services come in, they can just say, hey, oh, this looks like, this fits in this category, and we could just bill for this specific scope of work. We also, during this analysis, we also see that it's not just increases. There are some decreases, such as the temporary power, overhead, and underground services.
Why did that decrease? Did some efficiency?
So it's through that time estimate that we looked at. So
Scrubbed your numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And then I do want to note here that these percentages that we have here on this table is different from the staff report. We did see that there was an error. We didn't get an at-place memo in time. And the next slide, please. So this slide has the water, gas, wastewater rate schedules. There are 40 gas rate fees in the gas rate schedule. I think it was 42 maybe, and 40 in the water rate schedule, and then 20 in the sewer. So I only picked 3 of each utility to show here on the table. We can see the different percentage rate increases per service type. So for like the gas meter installation, it's only it's a 22% increase, and that's to the meter installation labor and then the meter material or the cost of the meter. And then for gas, the service connections themselves, such as the gas, the water, the 2-inch water and service connection, or the 4-inch sewer lateral, those increases are a little bit higher because, again, with the full scope of looking at the project from beginning to end, we also saw that there was the waste disposal construction haul away costs that we had to include in the fees. We do see here we do have some new fees that we introduced here. There's a demolition for gas services. This fee doesn't apply for electrification projects. It's when, when they're doing a demo, when they're moving the gas service from one end of the property, maybe to the other end of the property. And it's not for, so they're demoing one side and then installing on the other.
Sorry, I want to make sure I understood that. So you're saying that's the third one, the gas demo fee? That's not for electrification?
Correct. For electrification,
It's a relocation, sort of? Okay.
Yeah, just to add, so as you may be aware, if we have our customers going to electrify their homes for residents, part of there's a cost associated with demolishing and eliminating that service. So right now we have other funds available to fund those costs associated with, so it's not included in here. If a customer is either abandoning the service because they're going to relocate it, then that is not a cost. That is a cost to the developer, so that because they're going to reinstall that system.
Okay. And so next slide, please. I mentioned earlier about cross-connection fees. The cross-connection is a backflow device that prevents contamination into the potable water system. It's an existing program that we have, and it's mandated by the state, California State Water Resource Control Board. These fees that we're requesting for, it allows us to enforce community trust and it aligns with the industry standards of our neighboring agencies. We have about 4,700 devices in the system, and it's continually growing. And there are 402 that are non-compliant. These 402 non-compliant customers, there's a lot of follow-up that we have to do. There's inspection services as well, collaborating with the fire department as well. So the charges we're proposing here is a late fee for the annual testing, and then we're also providing the test services in this and the rate fee. So if the customer chooses to use the city as a testing and certifying the device, then they don't have to go out there and find a vendor of their own.
So when you say they're non-compliant, that just means they haven't been certified. They don't necessarily means that their device is broken.
That's correct. So they haven't tested their device. It could mean, and we would have to go out there to check to see if their device may have been certified just without they notify us. So they will go out there, do a field check. It could mean that I would have to check to see what the list of non-compliant customer devices are.
But are some of those non-compliant actually broken and we're getting backwash into the drinking water, or?
We have Denise.
Sure. This is Denise Rodriguez from Water Gas Wastewater.
So these devices,
You got it. Okay. You got it. It's on.
oh, okay. So these devices were approved and reviewed by the University of Southern California, and they're tested in a laboratory setting to only function properly for 12 months at a time. Of course, usually they function more than that, but we try to keep a 100% compliance rate, and with the new regulation that just got passed, they updated the regulation. We're having more stringent requirements to review the residences and the commercial properties, various properties. But they generally still are functioning properly, right? But that's part of the regulation to ensure that by having them annually tested. So in a laboratory setting, they found that 12 months is the limited amount that they expect the device to work properly. When a device fails, we have the requirement that they do repair it within 30 days. And we do send multiple notifications for that.
And so what are the ramifications of a device that's broken?
It could create, it could allow for that to happen. So that's why it's very important for these compliant rates to stay as close as possible to 100%. The state I'm looking at it, and the state is looking to ensure that pretty much every property starts having one of these backflow devices. I think that's the goal of the state. Eventually, just to have every property have this.
And so what is this connecting? You have the drinking water on one side.
So yeah, the potable drinking water, this ensures that there's no backflow into the potable drinking water. Properties will have devices that protect the internal drinking water of the actual building. So like the internal piping, but this device is regulated to be no more than 5 feet away from the water service meter before any connections. And that safeguards the overall potable drinking water from contamination.
But that's just, so you're protecting the drinking water supply at the street or near the meter with the drinking water pipes in my house.
Correct. So it could be your house, it could be a medical building, it could be, a restaurant that's utilizing certain systems that we don't want that kind of contamination into the system. Some of the new regulations she mentioned, the fire department. We're going to be working with the fire department as well, because we need to. One of the requirements now, and it's mandatory, that all fire services are protected against backflow. That wasn't a requirement previously when it was considered Title 17, but now with the new regulation, they are requiring that all these services are upgraded to have at least one the DC level testable backflow. So a lot of them right now, you'll have like a single check, but those aren't testable. So with the new research and studies that they came up with that new regulation where all fire services need to have this. And that's something we're implementing. So something like that, it's, technically it's not considered a health hazard, but it is a pollution. And I don't know if you've ever seen the water that comes out of a sprinkler head or a fire. You don't want to drink that water. It's polluted. It's not a health hazard, but it's just not, we want to protect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest source, is that sprinklers? Like
fire sprinkler.
But I assume like dishwashers, for example, have a protection inside of it.
Yes. So your dishwasher will have an air gap. So like that little thing that sticks up out of your sink, that's the air gap for the dishwasher. Your washer and dryer will also have a check valve in the connection to the house line. So that's something that's generally overseen by building and planning and development. We are protecting the overall city water supply that everybody uses from just pressure fluctuations in a building. It could be various things, like a fire sprinkler system, irrigation system, pump system. People who have a pool and just leave a hose in their, in their pool could cause this. Something simple as that.
Thank you. So I guess bottom line, we have 400 that are out non-compliant, but the risk to the system is pretty small.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. Before we get to the next slide. So we talked about the rates that were last updated in 2019 and the 5 rate schedules that we're proposing for updates with an effective date of January 1st, 2026. I don't know if it raised any eyebrows, the large increases from then until now. And so you might be asking, well, how do we minimize that that increase so that we're timely recovering our costs, but then also not giving customers a sticker shock when they're trying to update their connection services. So in this next slide, we're proposing to use the California Construction Cost Index for the annual percentage increase. And that's instead of using the consumer price index, because what we do is construction. And then we're also looking to move the rate schedule to the municipal fee schedule. So it's looked at annually and it's updated annually with the budget process. I have a snippet here of the California Construction Cost Index from 2019 to 2025. If we look at just 2019 to 2024, that's a 40% increase over that time. And then if we include the estimate for 2025, that's a 45%. So with this information that we have here, hopefully the Finance Committee would be able to approve and move the report forward to Council for approval.
May I just one other comment here? We don't take any increase lightly in terms of what we have to provide or show to our customers. We do want to make sure that we do have cost recovery over the years, and there was a decision where we updated this in 2019. Again, we kept rates flat on all levels during the pandemic. So it was very important for us to update these rates. So when development comes in, they pay their fair share to connect to our systems. We are protecting our systems. We want to have fees that make sense and that we don't have to keep doing more engineers' estimates. So there is some efficiency gain by going that route. Having annual adjustments tied to the construction cost index makes a lot of sense. And then tying it to the muni fee schedule. So when you see those fees updated citywide, which I think the next time is 2027, we'll do a refresh on those. And it's also important for us to take a look at how we create these fees, make sure we're looking at all those costs. The off-hauling of materials was much more expensive than we had in our model. So we upgraded our model to make sure we're doing that on a cost recovery basis.
I had a couple questions. So we updated in 2019. So the years 2020 until now are the basis on the construction cost index increase. Is that right?
No, we wanted to show what the history was for the construction costs index increases.
Well, I shouldn't say basis.
It wasn't.
But just looking at the inflationary cost, the construction cost index, what we'd look at is 2020 to 2025, right? Not 2019.
That's what there was in history. So going forward, when we make adjustments on an annual basis, we'll use the construction cost index.
Right.
We wanted to show kind of the history in terms of that.
And I value that. I just want to make sure I'm starting with the right baseline. It's not the 2019, because it would have been the 2020, right? To look at the construction cost index increase
Yes.
since we last updated.
Correct. You're correct.
And then it wouldn't be adding together those percentages because it's compounded. So I don't know what the compounded increase is, but it's quite a bit more than, I think, would you say 40%? Yeah, so it's probably over 50% compounded, maybe quite a bit over. So that I kind of, in my own mind, I use that as the baseline of what I'm then looking at are increases against construction costs and recognizing that's not the basis, but it's what do we have as a reference point on what's reasonable? Because when we say, okay, we're basing this on labor and updated time estimates, material costs and disposal expenses. So, a lot of that construction cost index is the labor and material. And then updated standards and regulatory compliance requirements. And addition of previously unaccounted services. So all that drives me into trying to grasp under certain categories, which maybe this additional previously unaccounted services explains it. But on the electric rate schedule, we're going on the two that we had for permanent power, where we had existing an existing category, it going up 278 and 180%. So, and then the other two on permanent are new, so we can't really say that. So how do we go up 180 and 278% based on 50+% construction cost index?
So like Anna mentioned earlier, we did take a look at the full cost of the service from design, engineering design, to permitting review, to inspection, and then construction, then inspection. I think previously we underestimated the number of hours. We only factored in the design and the construction, so we didn't include the permitting or the inspection back then.
So I hear categorically that those are things that weren't there, but we don't have that data that shows us how did we get to 278%. I mean, I'm struggling with that.
So we took the number of hours from each of those divisions of each of those categories and multiplied it by that new SC1 rate of 207. So it was, I forget the total number of hours, like 13 hours, let's say, in total of staff time, times that 207 plus the material, and that's how we came up with that new cost.
So how do we, but I'm still looking for a better explanation. How do we get 280% increase? That's a ton. So I hear the categories of what you looked at, but we don't have any data that I'm going, so how much of it was what? You know, how much of it was we just had a bunch of hours in a category that we weren't including, like you said, is that the primary explanation, or what is it?
That the main explanation, put in context too, though, I think that Anna showed the table. I think the increase is only 8% of total electric connection revenues. The majority of our revenues from electric connections are actually by engineer estimates. They are more specialized. So I think we had, I want to say 60 of the overhead and 35 of the underground of those 200 amps. So it really affects only a smaller population.
And that's the other interesting thing that I wanted to try to understand. So if out of all of E15, we only have an 8% increase over 5 years, but these ones that we're looking at, we've got decreases on the temporary power, but on the installed, the permanent power, we have massive increases. So I'm just, the information that I've heard so far, I'm assuming there's an explanation there, but I just don't know what it is yet.
So the percentage of our standard fees for electric is a lot smaller than the other water, gas, wastewater. So those standard fee only makes up 8% of the total connection charges. Whereas for the other utilities that has 40 different fees, we do have more options and menus to select from. That's why they're a bigger percentage of the total revenue increase. So even though it's going up 250% for electric, it only affects 8% of total revenues for total customer connections. Does that help? It's a small subset of it, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. And so that makes us feel better that it's only that subset. I'm still struggling to understand the subset.
And then we also actually, for that one, we did do a comparison. I think we did find from Santa Clara, and the rate for a 200 overhead is almost the same. I think ours was like $10, maybe more, proposed.
Our new rates.
Yes.
Comparable.
Yes.
So that's another indicator that we were missing charges before. And so do you think most of that is certain set of significant number of hours on that just weren't being included?
Yes. So for the 200 amp services, the over 200 amp overhead services, we were estimating the template had 8 hours of work, whereas with this new analysis that we did, it moved to, I think it was 13 or 14 hours.
Okay, and that's almost a doubling of the hours, although we're still on one of them 280%, but it's getting closer. Okay. All right. Well, given it's that small subset, And the general understanding that it's probably mostly combination of the inflation and certain previously underestimated hours. That's probably the primary explanation. So, okay. All right. Keith?
So on that same table, the E15, you have the 400 amps. Is this a new service, or is that just we had one category before?
We had the 200 amp categories, and then we saw that there are a lot more applications that are coming through for the 400 amp services of underground and overhead. So we introduced the for standard 400 amp services. We received about, I think, 90 applications for underground services in the 400 for the 400 amp over the past from 2020 to 2024. It's an average, and then I think it was.
But to answer your question, I think previously the 400 amp service was an engineering estimate, so we would have to estimate each one individually.
Oh, but it's now this kind of standard
Right.
product now.
And this will help streamline the permitting process for the customer and also save engineers time to process more permits.
Okay, so if I assume this is businesses that are doing 400 amps?
Electrification, lots of
Oh.
residents too.
Okay.
Requested for that.
And so if I want 600 amps or whatever, then I go to you and you'll say, okay, it's going to charge you this much. And
Then we would have to do a custom engineering estimate.
okay,
Anything greater than 400.
okay.
And you mentioned a lot of it is the electrification. That leads to my question. How much of it is new homes where people are going in and saying, well, I'm electrified and I need 400? And how much of it is people are converting from gas to electric and they think they have to increase their service so much? I don't know. Do we have any sense of that?
I don't think we have that data. That is a actual data point that we're going to start collecting,
Right.
but not at this point.
Well, and it goes into the discussions we've been having in the SCAP committee of really we as individuals and then as a city need to be looking more at not assuming that we just go up on a linear basis. If we electrify, we're going up, up, up. And we don't have any of these lower watt or considerations for lower watt appliances or smarter panels and appliances, that basically this increase in the service is, I think, often unnecessary, but contractors are selling homeowners, you just got to increase your panel size, and they're not doing it in a smart way and adding to their costs. So I'm just interested in understanding that. I've had friends who put in solar and battery systems, and when they remodeled and electrified, and their contractor said, you got to go to a 400 amp service. And I'm going, you're barely using any of our electricity. Why do you need a 400 amp service when you had 200 amps before you had solar and storage? And I think it's the contractors who are really misunderstanding this, which goes to as part of our development services department, and whether we have started adopting the tools to educate homeowners and contractors on smarter ways to approach electrification. And that's a different subject from tonight, but this feeds into that. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a couple more
Yep.
follow-up questions. So you have the table here for 200 amps. If I am an apartment owner, I'm building 10 new units. Is that now an engineering project and you have to customize it, or is there some standard way for doing multifamily?
No, yes, that would be an well, yes, that would be a Terry question.
Okay.
So Terry Crowley, acting chief operating officer. So the intent with multifamily or larger development, multiple meters, multiple gang meters would be an engineered estimate. And overall, that would be end up with lower costs than charging individual fees for those 200
Okay.
amps.
I
So
was going to ask, do you get a volume discount?
there would necessarily be a volume discount for it.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, can you bring up packet page 191? And there's some things in the table that I don't quite understand. So we have 2-inch copper water service in the middle. And then right below it says install 2-inch water service connection. What's the difference between those two rows?
So I can answer that generically, or we can have John answer that for you. It's the 2-inch water service connection is the plastic HDPE pipes that we install. And then the copper service is used for areas where we have contaminated soil and plastic won't work in those areas. So we install the copper service instead.
Oh, interesting. But the copper is actually less expensive.
So majority of all standard for water services 2-inch PE, and we have a process of doing that, and we do a lot. 90+% of the water services is PE. There's few cases that we do copper due to soil contamination and places that we cannot do the PE plastic service, and that's why the cost is different.
And so why is copper cheaper?
The PE that we use is a trendless that we drill, and I think when we did the cost analysis for the labor, the equipment, and everything, it ended up costing a little bit more. The copper service we usually do open cut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And next table, table 4. They say, rehabilitate existing 4 to 6-inch sewer lateral. That's if someone has a sewer lateral on their private property, or is this in the public?
This is in the public right of way.
Okay, but we charge the person even though it's in the public right of way?
There's a couple ways that we replace the sanitary sewer. One is when they go from a 4-inch, for example, to a larger size. When in the past, when we if the property have 2 sewer lateral, and they want to keep one, and is not the structural is good, we can do a rehab. We don't have to cut up the street, and we just use the existing alignment to put in a new sewer lateral.
Okay, but the private person would have to pay for this as opposed to the utilities paying for it?
Right now, those fee are the owner paying for it.
Oh, really? Okay, I thought everything from the property line out was paid by utilities and everything from the property line in was paid by the private person.
So I think the question is like an existing customer, if there is an issue on that lateral on the city's side, is that a cost to the customer? Or is this fee here associated with a development that's coming in and they want to reuse an existing line and that they're going to be paying for that as part of their development? Is that accurate?
Okay. I'm just wondering under what circumstances would a private person have to pay for rehabilitation on the public right of way?
I think it's just to increase the capacity for their building. I guess it would be.
So in the past, we charged the customer to do rehab on the existing sewer lateral. The new standard, you're right, the customer do not pay for it.
Okay.
You are correct.
Okay, but for example, development might need this then. Okay, that makes sense. And one last question is, if you scroll down to the top of the next page there's the core drill and manhole connections. Can you describe what that is?
We have existing manhole, and sometimes new development require the sewer lateral to connecting to the manhole. What this fee is given is to make sure that the city go in and actually drill the hole. In the past, when we don't have a fee, the contractor sometimes jackhammer.
Okay.
Yeah, so we require to make sure that that hole is not damaged the existing manhole.
It's a more protective measure to connect into our manhole. So you're drilling that out versus it's causing potential less damage and less spalling and failure of the manhole itself. So and we want to make sure that we're capturing that cost and the developer is getting that benefit.
But if I'm a developer, I can just connect the manhole. That's legal.
We don't usually allow that, only when there is no other option. We would like to have let's say we have a sewer main and there is a tapping that you're connecting to the sewer main. That way it's less damage it's not damaging to the manhole. But there are places that due to elevation or slope, and they have no choice. They have to connecting to the manhole. This is the best way to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are we there?
Yep, I'm happy. Should we move let's see, what is it? To accept it, or what's the phrase?
That we recommend to the council adoption of the resolution.
Okay, so moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor? All right.
Did we have public comment?
Oh, didn't we do that? Oh, sorry. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
All right, now. All in favor? Aye, that passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that leads to our final item, which is consideration of a recommendation to the council to approve a purchase order utilizing a GSA blanket purchase agreement to procure SAP suite of products for a 5-year term not to exceed 6.6 million and change, and approve a budget amendment correspondingly in the technology fund. Welcome.
Thank you. Darren Emoto, Director of IT, and I have with me Jitendra Kulkarni, our IT Enterprise Manager. And online, I have our new Assistant Director of IT, Lisa Bolger, and our Senior Management Analyst, Sherry Wong, to help in the presentation and answer follow-up questions. So thank you, Chair and committee members. Just wanted to give a quick overview of why we're asking for this. We currently leverage SAP for our enterprise resource management planning system, and SAP has deemed our current version end of life as of December 2027, which is pushing us towards upgrading to their latest version, which is S/4HANA. And what we're here asking for is just seeking Finance Committee recommendation to the City Council to put this on the agenda or consent calendar for September 29th for consideration. Next slide, please. Sorry, this is just blocking all of my... So just wanted to give a quick overview of what SAP does for the city today. So there's 3 departments who use this in their daily work. It's finance, human resources, and utilities. And I'm not going to regurgitate everything on the slide, but really the highlights are it's used for all accounting, accounts payable, payroll benefits, and utilities, billing, meter reading, and so forth. And also city staff use this daily for time cards and purchase orders and other things as well. So it is used citywide. Next slide, please. Just wanted to give a highlight of the journey of SAP at the city. It was first installed at the city in 2002. In 2017, we went through a full RFP to consider other options, and the decision was made to stay with SAP in 2018. And then in 2019, 20-ish, we went through a technical upgrade, which was going from a very outdated, unsupported version to the latest supported version that we're on today. And that took a lot of effort and staff time to complete. And then moving through that, we did in 2022 to 2025 a bunch of different functional enhancements to improve our processes and create efficiencies for all the departments. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to give some of the benefits of migrating to S/4HANA. And we just have 5 pillars here. Mainly is to keep up to date on current support for SAP, compliance reasons such as payroll tax codes and other compliances that will not be supported in the old version after 2027. And security, of course, with a unsupported system, security patches and so forth will not be provided, and some updates as well. And then, as well as no innovation is going to happen with the old platform. It's all going to be diverted to the new platform. And these innovations include things such as AI, data warehousing, and some, a bunch of other. The good thing with this is it's going to be moving to a fully SAP supported platform. So they're going to be managing infrastructure, managing application. So we'll always be up to date with the latest and greatest versions. And then also reduce the risk of being on an outdated system. Next slide, please. If I'm going too fast, please let me know to slow down. So this is a cost breakdown of the overall 5-year cost of the project. And today we're mainly speaking around the SAP licensing, but we did want to highlight that in the future, we will be moving forward an item around implementation services if this does get approved through council on the 29th. And just wanted to highlight here year over year, and the items in red are incentives that are being provided by SAP as well as the infrastructure provider. So these are discounts that are being provided if we sign before the end of September. Next slide, please. Here's another projected cost savings breakdown. The one benefit of moving forward with the incentives is that we're going to be provided price protection for the 5 years. So our price will not increase year over year for this 5-year term, and as well as the business transformation incentive that they're providing and no longer paying for the support of our current system. So all that equates to around a 3.430 and change savings over the course of 5 years. Next slide, please. So one of the alternatives.
Sorry,
go
Darren,
ahead.
you invited us to
Yes.
jump in, so can you just stay on this slide a second?
Sure.
So we've got we get to the 3.4 because I'm trying to get the difference here between the protected pricing and the regular increase without the protection.
Yep.
Is about 1.4. Okay, so there's that. The 318 is where does that come in?
That's the current licensing cost we pay for today.
Okay. I see. So we don't need that maintenance if we go live with this new stuff.
Yes.
Okay. And then there's this other incentive of 16. It's sort of like 1 year off.
Okay. Correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
So a total of 3.4 if we implement this now.
Not if we sign the
Sorry,
contract.
we send it by
yes.
September
Yes.
30th. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And following up on that, so on the previous slide, we've got the current annual hosting cost of $934,000. We get rid of that, right?
Yes.
But I don't see that number in that next slide. Isn't that a savings that we get from?
We didn't really recognize it as savings because it's inclusive of the cost of our licensing now. Before we were paying a third party for that services, but now it's inclusive in the licensing with SAP since they're providing that service. So it's really not a savings, it's just transferring of the cost from one provider, our current provider, AWS, to SAP. So we didn't really feel that was a cost savings.
But is that 934 then within that 1.6 a year, or?
Sorry, which slide are you referring to?
Well, now our annual pricing, does it incur? You're saying it's now within our going with SAP, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
So
It's
is that
included in the
934 part of the 1.66?
Yes.
Okay. So then we've got 700,000 or so per year above that current hosting costs. So that's a net increase. So when we're saying we're having the savings, are we including the fact that we've got an extra 700,000 each year?
No, this is a savings if we didn't sign by September. So sorry, I wasn't more clear about that. So this price breakdown is if we do not sign by September, then our pricing could be represented on the table on the right.
Okay. And if we do sign by September, is it the one on the left?
Yes, that is correct.
So, but then the difference, and I may be completely misunderstanding, is the difference between the current hosting costs of 934 and the cost savings that we'll have on the left of 1.66 is a little over 700,000 a year each year. So is that additional 700,000, is that a saving versus if we didn't renew, or is it and it's actually a net increase over our current cost structure?
It is a net increase over our current cost structure.
Okay. And we didn't have that increase in the budget.
We accounted for that. And so my apologies for not mentioning earlier, we planned for this. So it's in our tech fund and that's how it's going to be funded. So,
okay. So we were budgeting for what's over on the right. What were we budgeting for?
we're budgeting for the upgrade, which is the overall cost, and it was a range, right? So working with SAP, negotiating with, they gave us these incentives. So that's where the savings is coming in. So we were planning more for on the right-hand side, but we got the incentives.
Okay, so we're saving versus what we budgeted for.
Yes.
We're up about 700,000 a year versus our old cost, but you had built that into the budget already.
Yeah.
Let me add. When we go to the fiscal impact section, it's a little easier to refer to maybe, but over the 5-year period, year 1 and 2 are in alignment with our budget and our long range plan. In year 3, 4, and 5, we will be needing to incorporate that $660,000 across all funds. The implementation costs, as Director Nomoto mentioned, is included, but the increased maintenance costs, the subscription will have to be incorporated in year 3, 4, and 5.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
And how do you feel about SAP and this whole, us being locked into them and all that? I know every time we want to do anything different, it's an act of Congress.
Yeah, and ERP systems for any company, in my opinion, are the core of the company, right? And that's how they operate. That's how they operate and maintain their finances and other elements. One thing for us is because of all the different services we offer, it does create a lot of complexities with the systems that we have an opportunity to use. Going back to the RFP, a lot of companies were able to do the accounting and the HR aspects, but not the utility billing. So that's where the mix comes in, where SAP was able to provide all 3 of those services for us.
And under the new version, is it any easier to modify as we get a new need than it used to be?
Mostly, yes, right? You still need expertise to customize, to configure the system to our needs, but it definitely creates better standards that we have to adhere to. So it makes the configuration changes easier to implement and the change control, lessen the change control because of the UI improvements. And as they're moving forward with many companies, right? Taking advantage of AI and incorporating that in their tools to help ease and create efficiencies for staff.
Okay, so some of those efficiencies accrue to us, not just to them having lower cost of providing the service.
You mean us as a city? Yes, for sure. Yeah. And, just during the last enhancements, we've created a lot of efficiencies in terms of increasing the time it takes to process payroll, to self-service open enrollment for benefits for our staff. Now they can go in and do everything online versus having to work with HR. So it's a lot of time savings there.
And how is AI empowering that?
It is not today because it's not within our current system. So,
but I mean, under this new,
there's going to be a lot of opportunities for reporting and interacting with the system using AI, right? So again, we don't have a good lens of that yet,
Yep.
but that's what enables us, or what will enable us to do that is taking advantage of the new licensing model. When we go to SAP S/4HANA, we get access to all the different tools.
So under that general anticipation that we'll have AI will empower us more to be able to take advantage of the capabilities of the system more efficiently. Do you expect that that will result in simply that we're able to do changes faster, or that we'll be able to do them at lower cost, or some other benefit?
It
Or
could
some
include those,
combination,
but
yeah.
mostly it's going to improve the efficiencies, how our users interact with the system, right?
Oh.
And be able to extract data quicker, ask it better questions, and then get responses quicker.
By our users, you mean customers or
No, it's our
internal?
users, internal staff.
So our internal staff will be able to get better data more efficiently.
Yes.
And then, you know, we've kind of really been trying to struggle with what's a big unknown, but to what extent is AI going to begin to improve our operations and make us more efficient? And what will that result in? Will that be cost savings? Will that be performance improvement? We can move faster, but same cost, or is it some combination? So in this example, that you're saying that our internal customers are going to be able to get the data they need easier and faster?
Yes.
And what will that mean in terms of either better performance or lower cost? Without, you know, I realize I'm asking for a generalization, but what do you think that's going to mean?
The general goal is to allow staff to decrease the amount of mundane and repetitive work they do to focus on the higher value work. So that's the overall end goal of moving to this new system. And just one of the advantages and the features that they highlighted is a feature called Help Me, where it really just walks them through how to do certain things. Today, we don't have that, right? So, you know, it gives them screenshots and so forth to walk them through how to create a new report or to get certain information. So these are just a few of the little enhancements. And we've seen demos of it, but until we really get into the system, it's going to be difficult to quantify some of that.
Yeah, as we're being, sorry.
Sorry, Chair. I just, as Director Numoto is speaking as a system administrator, it might be beneficial to hear from the actual system users. So maybe Director Lai or Sandra, if you have any other feedback on this as well.
Yep. Great.
Yeah, that'd
Thank
be
you for
great.
that. We do have just one last slide to get through, but
Sure. Why don't you do that and then we'll loop back.
Next slide, please. And this answers we already answered some of these questions. So the alternatives, if we do nothing, right, and we don't upgrade, it does create a lot of risk for the city being on an outdated platform as of 2027, and our ability to improve efficiencies will be limited. And but again, this is a cost structure around it, and the advantages, or well, advantage disadvantages, it will avoid a $660,000 increase, to which you alluded to, Chair Burt.
Okay, thanks.
And then last item is just our draft of a potential recommendation from council. Next slide, please.
All right. And Lauren and Sandra, any kind of thoughts on how you think this is going to benefit your teams?
Thank you. What I can speak to is, you know, where we've made progress just in the last 3 years. Since the last upgrade, we've been working with the team to use what's called the Fiori app to provide these abilities for employees to make address changes. That was something that just 2 years ago, our staff was entering manually. With all of the new hires and the new hire entries we've had to process, able to speed that up. as Darren mentioned, we've done a lot of work to enable employees to enter their own benefit changes for life events. That was not available,
So those things really sound like productivity gains that reduce labor needs within your department.
What we can do is shift to other work that, like reporting, or speaking to internal customers about their benefit needs.
But I want us to really not as a default say that every time we have a productivity gain, well, there's other stuff we can do. And that we never really get to actualize that in terms of cost savings. And I'm hearing that, and I understand that there's a lot of other stuff, and we'd like to be able to do the other stuff sooner and more effectively. But I think we, as an organization, need to think about both these things: faster performance and reduce cost. I mean, when we eliminate a whole bunch of manual labor, somewhere in the organization, we shouldn't have to have so many people doing manual labor. And it doesn't necessarily mean that we just use those people for other purposes if we're surviving fairly well without them currently doing those other functions. Now, I understand it's not as simple as that, but I really want to encourage us to this is what the Finance Committee has really been trying to focus on what can be the real organizational efficiency improvements that we are going to see from these technologies, in particular AI.
Sure. And I think that's a fair, broad kind of construct as to monitoring and managing, what does this new technology that frankly we're all learning and adapting to in real time together. I will say some of the things, as Sandra was noting, that have alleviated some of the day-to-day paperwork have been replaced with things like a lot of the vacancy statistics that we've been historically not able to provide the committee, but we've been working on providing now. We've been able to do that because we've shifted some of that manual manipulation and been able to actually move from the manual manipulation into these reportings at a better level, frankly, to meet the questions and the level of analytical rigor. To your point, it doesn't mean that it's an automatic. We should be conscious about these choices, but that's just an example of how we've shifted away from perhaps pushing paper and into, well, what does the data tell us? Where are we at with our vacancies? Do we have problems? How should we be slowing down hiring? Should we, be increasing hiring and being able to analyze in a better way? Like, what does it tell us?
So I think that's a good example of that combination of things. We get more valuable information, but I'm not sanguine that the amount of labor to get that additional information is the same as the amount of labor we saved from a whole bunch of manual data entry on an ongoing basis. And that's what I think we need to be trying to look at and not spend a ton of labor analyzing it, but get a better handle on that and not by default say, oh yeah, but it's all getting consumed in additional tasks of analysis or whatever. We need to try to understand what's happening, and we need to, like we see all these other essentially white collar organizations are saying, we're seeing lower labor costs and lower labor needs as a result of these changes. But what I'm hearing from us say, and in government saying, well, not just say us, is, oh no, we just shift the people from here to there. And I think based on what the Finance Committee and the council is really wanting to know, no, that's not a good enough answer. We're going to want to really understand how we can begin to be, as a result of these technologies, a more productive organization that doesn't have to add labor as we grow in population or whatever it is. So just to kind of tee this up. Great.
No, thank you.
There are things we'd love to do. We just don't have the money to do them. And anything that we can save in labor, we can hire someone else to or shift people over to do that job that isn't being done right now. So I think it's
Well, in a way, that's what they're saying, though.
well,
Something
I'm not saying within their department, but for example,
throughout the city.
Exactly.
Did you want me to comment from an ASD customer perspective or internal user perspective? I think some of the, what I've observed during my time here is the struggles that we have in the version that we have, even to making some of the updates that we need to. So I'm looking forward to being on a current platform such that as we need to make some improvements, they could be more responsive, or with the hope that after the first migration, we can start looking at features that exist in the new version already, which we are working very hard to even customize. And I don't like that word customization with technology because one, it's costly, it's not robust, and any type of upgrades, there's a high risk that those customizations may break. So as an internal major stakeholder for this system, I'm pleased to be moving in the direction where we can put ourselves as a customer in a better position than trying to work against SAP because we're using technology that's outdated. I think another benefit that I foresee is an opportunity to have better integration with other systems, such as our budgeting system like Questica, and really seeking this opportunity to potentially make improvements since our last implementation. Last but not least, IT is leading the effort to do a lot of interviews within our city of major business processes with the hope that in 2 years, we'll be taking those business interviews and workflow analysis and incorporating them as workflows in SAP once we go live on this new platform. And for me, that potential out there is very exciting. So wanted to share that.
Thank you for that. And I just want to commend you for finding a way to save the city a bunch of money. You had this planned upgrade budgeted, and then you figured out at the 11th hour that you could save some money. We got to sign it by September 30th in order for that to happen. So just thank you for that.
Yep. It's kudos to the team. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Ditto. And I realized another related question, what I was asking is SAP doing any of their own projections or claims on a more specific way of how this new upgrade should benefit their customers, and particularly in government and at our scale? Are they as part of their sales claims or whatever saying, yeah, here's case studies, or here's what we project in a general way, which may be sales-based claims, but there's still a reference point that we can compare to.
Yep. And they have provided some city references that have migrated already, and some are larger counties, and others it's hard to find a city that's comparable to us with our size and the amount of services. So that's always a challenge for us. But overall, in speaking to a lot of those references, they speak nothing but great things in terms of the migration, and then of course the new UI and the ease of which the users can interact with the system. So, and the process improvements, of course. But moving forward, if this does move forward, we'll partner, and Jitender's been communicating with a lot of those agencies and, creating this network of collaboration. So, definitely looking forward to leveraging off some of their lessons learned as well.
But SAP isn't providing any projections with any value that's based upon users or their own analysis that says, yeah, here's what we think will happen.
We can follow up on that. I don't think we do, just because of the wide variety of customers, to your point, that use that system and the broad business lines of business, frankly. But we can check on that.
Okay.
Yeah, we can check on their marketing material. But again, for us, it's marketing material. It's really what impacts us more directly. So
yeah, I understand.
So
Okay.
I move to.
Actually, I have a couple quick questions.
Sure.
Do we have any third-party apps that sit on top of SAP, or is everything just SAP native?
We have many systems that interface
with it, but
with
not on
SAP.
top of SAP.
Okay. But so those are from a third party or is that from SAP?
Well, Director Lai mentioned, we have Questica that interfaces with SAP, but SAP is the source of truth for the data. And then we have third-party systems that pull data from SAP or push data into SAP.
Okay. And so this switch to this HANA, I assume, will not make any of those. Will there be any issues, compatibility issues?
Not that we've heard at all right now, and reaching out to our third-party vendors, we don't foresee any issues.
Okay.
And, with this new system, the APIs are more open and accessible as well. I do want to mention that the one, to your point, currently our utilities customer services use a CRM platform that is outside of the core SAP offering. And with this new S/4HANA, it's all incorporated into the single platform. So that is an advantage.
Okay. And I liked slide 4. I didn't know the big picture. The 2018 decision, was that driven because SAP was the best provider or that we have big switching costs?
It was, as I mentioned, it was because SAP was one of the only providers that could service all 3 of our business units fully, including the utility bill printing. If we went with some other systems, we'd have to go out and get another utility billing system, then create interfaces into SAP. So we'd be operating 2 separate systems.
Okay. And finally, why are we going with this Carasoft as opposed to going directly with SAP?
They don't sell direct to customers. So Carasoft is a purchasing vehicle that all agencies use to procure services. So SAP does not sell directly to end users or companies.
Okay. And this is one of those cooperative deals where they have, so we don't have to do a competitive bid.
That is correct.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Thank you.
Make the motion. You got the mic.
Okay. I move that we recommend to the finance. We recommend the city council approval of the Carasoft purchase order not to exceed 66 million and change. 6.6 million. 6.6 million and change.
Slips.
Over 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. I second that.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Briefly. Oh, did we have public comment? No, sorry.
No public
We're
comment.
boring. Nobody's. Just briefly, upcoming meetings.
So in the month of October, our October 7th meeting is canceled. And on October 21st, we'll be looking at reviewing the city's insurance and risk management program, and then also investment advisory services and programs.
Okay, thank you. We're adjourned.
Thank you.